let Dan loose on the buttons. He's pressing the wrong ones over there. Shelter FootyCast, Mark Reddings, Will Schofield coming at you live from BackChat Studios. G'day, Skeet. How are you?
Going well, Scully. Yeah, there's a hint of spring in the air, so a bit of warm weather. Still a bit of footy to be played out, and so much talk about where players are going in the AFL. So looking forward to a bit more footy talk before we switch into summer mode.
You may be the busiest man in Perth media. So I was just sitting at home, just minding my own business. I thought, what's happening in the Sandover? Mark Reddings is there hosting the Sandover.
Yeah, it was a really good night. So yeah, doing the Sandover. Had a bit of brekkie radio yesterday. Doing a bit with the Footy Commission. Doing Carl with radio on a weekly.
You're tired?
Night. I'm a bit weary. I actually went downstairs this morning, which you're just driving me towards this. Went downstairs this morning after a couple of 15-hour days and just gave my wife a hug. Said I'm a bit tired. And she's a ripper, by the way. She goes, well, it serves you right for going out 4 nights in a row in Melbourne and getting yourself on the gas. Talk about, they've got good memories. I love it, but they've got good memories.
Very good, and that is why we love them. That is very good stuff. That was the Southern River Band boys. The boys from Thornley. They're playing a gig this weekend out at the, I'm going to butcher this. I need to know the name. Go and find it, please, Dan. It's not the Thornley Tavern, but it is in their home turf. I think it's sold out. They're going to have a good one there. We do this every Monday and Thursday on the Shelter FootyCast, a preview, review, get right into the action. The footy season's over, so what are we going to do? I'm going to tell you that very shortly. A bit of a West Australian theme here at the Shelter FootyCast. You can follow us on socials, Shelter FootyCast on Instagram. You can send us an email, footycast@shelterbrewing.com.au. Watch us on YouTube, listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. Shelter, born and brewed in Busselton. Now, what are we going to do this week and going forward? Well, we're just going to start slowly transitioning into the Shelter Sportcast. Yes, there's lots of stuff happening in the footy world, but there's other sports as well. So a bit of a soft transition, but to be honest, there's plenty to get through today in the world of footy. We'll have some stuff at the back end of this. And next week, we're going to do a review on season that 2022 was. We'll have our normal big moments of what's happening in sport off the top. And then we're going to get through on the Monday, we'll get through 9 teams. And then on the Thursday, we'll get through the other 9 teams, get through a bit of a review of the season that was. But let's get into it. Some big moments of the round, or the week, I should say. Joel Selwood retires yesterday. I think we said that maybe that was on the cards, the way he was reacting after the grand final. I wrote an article for Code Sports about it, and I sat down to write, and I thought, what sort of interactions have I had with Joel Selwood? Yes, he's been a great footballer. Yes, he's been, the best Geelong cat of all time, I think. After just doing a bit of research yesterday, I think that's almost undisputable, to be honest, what he's been able to do. 6 All-Australians, 4 premierships, 1 as captain, the most games as captain in the AFL history for any player, the most wins as a captain ever, and the most finals played as a player ever. Yep. So that's like AFL, not even Geelong. So I think he jumps right to the top there. He won 3 best and fairest there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Games record holder.
40 finals, went past Tucky on grand final day. And I think you're right. Look, the discussion could still be had in Geelong about, was it Polly Farmer, is it Gary Ablett Sr., Gary Ablett Jr.? And I know it's always the most recent memory that provides that the headline of the best ever. But the numbers pretty much speak for themselves, and he's just been a ripper. And people were surprised or raised their eyebrows. It was the most obvious thing I think I saw on grand final day, apart from Sydney shite. It was the fact that Joel Selwood was retiring. You could tell
when he kicked the goal. I only just saw that the banana that he kicked was an unbelievable goal. By the way, he started crying.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, but they'd won the game already. He's not crying because they won, because he already knew that.
Well, he told the players, I'm guessing, either Thursday or
they knew.
They all knew, which is great. And
awesome.
And look, there's a bit of a whisper that he might end up going straight into assistant coaching ranks. Carlton has been mentioned.
Wow.
Whatever he does, he'll do it with class.
And he'll be set for life, by the way. He can do whatever he wants in Geelong. He could be the ambassador for
anything,
every business in Geelong, and he'd be just fine. When I was thinking about things he's done, they're all the footy things, right? But I had some memories around draft camp. He was the best player. I just remember watching him as a 17-year-old out in the field, and he was just dominant. And he should have been the number 1 pick that year. I remember coming home from draft camp and telling my mates, you should see this Selwood kid. Like, he's unbelievable. I sat next to him on the plane on the way home from draft camp as a 17-year-old, and I just remember him being like the best bloke ever. He sat listening to every word I had to say. Like, we'd never met each other. I was like, this random kid. He moved when he got drafted. They lived across the road from my family home in Geelong, and I remember going over there after I was drafted, like, you know, some skinny kid at pick 50. Joel Selwood should have been the number one pick effectively. And he almost seemed more happy for me that I'd been drafted than he was himself. Like, he was just a good bloke. And then obviously had interactions across the way. My brother, who's, you know, really quite sick at the moment in hospital with leukemia, massive Geelong fans, you know, through some contacts, we reached out to Joel Selwood. Not only did he, you know, send a get well soon video, which athletes get that all the time, he went around the footy club at Geelong and got all the big stars for Jace, you know, Cameron and Stewart and all the guys basically, and then sent this jumper with a FU AML. So AML is acute myeloid leukemia. FU is FU. And had it signed, put the Jace's lucky number on the back. I just went way above and beyond what needed to be done. And he didn't know it was my brother either. Jace, my brother, has a different last name to me. So he was just doing it for a random bloke.
Yeah.
It wasn't, you know, that summarises what I think about him.
Grand final day, the boots to the Loz kicker, of course, the special relationship he had with the Geelong young bloke, the kid with Down syndrome, who's obviously a permanent fixture around Geelong, but just the way he embraced him. And so I think he rang up
the parents.
The parents said, look, I'm going to take care of the young bloke and we'll make sure he gets home safely. So all that stuff is terrific. And it must be said, I've had dealings with really the other Selwoods, but they're all pretty darn good citizens. They're a good family. So that it's one of the feel-good stories of footy this year.
You'd have to say that Bryce and Marie Selwood, so that's mum and dad, that must have been, if we're talking about Joel Selwood holding records of, you know, all time, I reckon Bryce and Marie must hold all-time records for sons playing footy, for time in the game. Like, they've done a bloody good job. Imagine the frequent flyer points they've racked up, because they used to go to, when all four of them were playing, Troy, Adam, Scott, Joel, they used to fly everywhere.
Yeah, but imagine how tough it would have been in the backyard there and how many windows would have been broken. And Joel giving it the arm and elbow up trying to get the free kick.
Scott was always the toughest, I think, and Scott had some injuries. They all probably had a few injuries other than Joel. But Scott was the youngest. That's why he was the toughest, because he had to scrap his way to the top. The Sandover medal was last night. We spoke about that. Blaine Boakhorst spent some time on Carlton's list. Was he anywhere else? Is it just Carlton?
Carlton obviously played with Swans and East Fremantle. East Fremantle's still there, but
he wins the Sandover after doing his ACL with 3 rounds to go.
Round 16 did it, and he may not play again depending on how it goes. It's his second Rico, so he won by 2 votes.
Hamish Brayshaw,
Pammer, who did a really good job and had a good season. Let's be honest. But going back to, you talk about Boakhorst in 2014, round 7, I think Carlton got belted by Collingwood. He put out a tweet saying, "What a disgrace! The Blues 1 goal 5. They need to have a good look at themselves, and Mick might have to go." He gets drafted by Carlton.
Mick Malthouse and Carlton.
It's brilliant. I asked him that yesterday, and it was like, he explained the situation. He said Twitter was quite new to the social sphere. Him and I get on well. And he just didn't quite realise the ramifications of it. So how funny was that? Blaine Boakhorst.
Rocking up in your AFL club.
Mick.
Imagine Mick as well. He would have been absolutely shattered. There you go. That's some big moments that are around. Let's get into West Coast and Fremantle, the western side of things, here on the Shelter FootyCast. Mark Rennings, Will Schofield. Well, trade news is starting to really ramp up now. We'll get into some of the Freo stuff. North Melbourne's assistance package that they've received from the AFL, which I still, when that sort of stuff happens, I don't know. It's like, we're so shit. Give us some help. And just, I don't know. I don't know how I sit with that, but we're not going to talk about that. That could be used to get Griffin Logue to the football club. North Melbourne, of course, are linked to Griffin Logue and Darcy Tucker from Freo. They've still got to get the deals done, though, but it seems like they'll happen. I did wonder, and we spoke about this, whether the Clarkson, Fagan, Hawthorn stuff that's happened over the last week would change anyone's mind there.
I remember saying no. I think once you've checked out of a club, I think that's how this will play out as well. I'm more interested about who then from North Melbourne, for instance, does the wheeling and dealing if there's stuff to be done with, say, the Dockers on that front. I'm not sure where that heads and whether it's just the footy manager who goes down that path. But yeah, the players that have been purported to go, like for instance, Jack Gunston going up to Brisbane.
Yep, Dunkley as well.
More than happy. When I say more than happy, quite content. He said, whether Chris Fagan is there or not, I'm committed to Brisbane. So yeah,
it's interesting because when you move clubs, I would say it's pretty rare that you're moving there for the coach.
Just and singularly for the Colts.
Yeah, but Clarkson might be different given his history, but I would say a low percentage of players would go, oh, gee, I want to go play that because of the coach. You're going there because of the team, maybe the teammates, the culture, the winning culture, which is driven by the coach.
Yeah, but hang on. You're going to talk about Griffin Logue. None of those belong to North Melbourne at the moment. No, seriously. He doesn't know the players,
I probably should
the
put
culture,
money,
the winning, and again,
money at the end.
Yeah, and money is, and look, there's no shame in that. I mean, but to go to North Melbourne, I think that is a case of Clarko having a fairly big influence.
I put a few feelers out during the week, and it doesn't sound like anyone's changed their minds.
No, I don't think they would. Yeah.
So I think you were spot on there, Skate. Well done. Fremantle, they're going to have to replace some of these players. Like, they can't have 6 players walk out the door and have just 17-year-olds roll back in, right? Like, they will go to the draft, of course, but
trade.
I think that pulls them back a notch if you lose 5 24-year-olds and replace them with 18-year-olds. So I haven't heard, to be honest, a lot of replacements. Josh Corbett from the Gold Coast Suns has been rumoured. I mean, Josh Corbett sort of played key back through the midfield. He's been sort of a bit of a, jack of all trades for Gold Coast. I don't see him playing for Fremantle if they go and get a Josh Corbett. I haven't heard many other players linked to Freo.
No, that's been pretty quiet on that
Luke
front.
Jackson, obviously.
Luke Jackson, but and look, this is not going to happen, I wouldn't have thought, given that he's just signed a new contract this year. But Logan McDonald misses out on the grand final. Now, he fits their age demographic in terms of getting someone. He's had a couple of years in the system, but he would be a terrific addition alongside Amos. There's your future if you could.
If you could go and get him, I'd be putting more money and effort to go and get someone like him than a Luke Jackson, which, as I'm saying it, sounds strange, but he's a key forward. Like, he is nothing else but a key forward. So that they aren't rolling around the league at the moment. Liam Jones is someone, this isn't Freo or West Coast, Liam Jones has been someone that I think people have forgotten about.
He's coming back, isn't he?
Yeah, to Western Bulldogs.
Yeah.
Which I'm just thinking about key position guys,
That's a big get for them, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's they need a key position back.
Well, Johannessen's re-signed, which I was slightly surprised about. You mentioned Josh Dunkley, who won the fairest and best at the Bulldogs.
Yes.
And as Bevo said, Brisbane's going to have to pony up for
Luke Power,
yeah,
who's the list manager there. He's going to have to pony up. I love Bevo.
Well, it's fair enough as well.
Yeah, correct. All right, so that's Freo. That's all happening there. Colin Young has a fair bit to do what's going on. He manages at least 4 of those guys.
He loves this time of the year.
Absolutely. Well, this is what he's paid for.
Exactly. This is his bread and butter. Showed me the money last year on Stan. I saw that.
I think there's a season 2, by the way.
Is there a season 2? Well, there's not always success, because Bobby Hill, as an example, didn't get where he wanted to. Rory Lobb didn't get to. So, yeah, despite your best effort. But here's the thing. If you're contracted, right, like Rory was and is,
yes,
then, tough titties, as I said in the old days. I'm trying to think of
yeah, no, you've nailed it. Absolutely, tough titties.
No, well, if you're contracted and then suddenly the manager has put that contract in place, and then you want to get out 2 years early for no other reason than you got a girlfriend on the East Coast or you want to come home and see family, well, bad luck. If the club wants to play hardball, I don't think, by the way, Belly and Fremantle will go to the degrees they did last year. I think they'll find a suitable deal to get into the Bulldogs.
They have to take the position they're taking right now.
Absolutely.
Because he is contracted. And if they just say, oh, no, go for it, then it opens the floodgates for everyone else. But I've spoken about this before. I would like to see contracts valued more than they are currently.
Which is zero.
Exactly. They're not worth the paper that they're written on, because restricted free agency, unrestricted free agency, there are mechanisms for players to move around. But in reality, if a player comes to a club and says, I don't want to be here, they pretty much have to trade him. Unless, like Rory Lobb, 2 years to go and Fremantle dig their heels in and convince the player that they actually do have something else planned for him, they're pretty much contracts. Who cares? Doesn't really matter what they're written on.
Well, the Dockers actually, I think, will end up on the right side of this deal with Lobb because of what he did in 2022. And he's contracted. His value has certainly gone north as opposed to
last year. They'll get more from him this year.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's worked out well for them on that front.
What about West Coast? I found this funny during the week. Castores moved on from the footy club. New Balance has come in.
So what is it? I mean, I know there's always been an issue with the.
Well, they never got their jumpers, mate. They did not get their jumpers this year. They did not get them. They were getting made at Burley Seacombe, and they were branding them Castore this year. I don't know if anyone knows that, but I went out to the Burley Seacombe factory, just randomly had a bit of a tour around it. I said, what's going on here? All the West Coast jumpers there. So we make them. Castore can't make them, so we just put a Castore sticker over the top.
Here's a naive question. Then why
it's an apparel sponsorship?
I know, but why don't the Eagles use? It's because it's the dollars that are associated with going with the big international brand as opposed to Burley Seacombe. Is that how it works?
Yes.
Okay.
100%. And hasn't quite worked out for West Coast. There was the Campbell Chesser debacle at the start of the year where he was wearing an art smock when he got drafted.
Spinnaker.
I put it out on Twitter that they didn't have socks. They didn't deliver them any socks, so they were bringing their own socks. And
someone else wearing a wrong number or wrong.
There was wrong numbers all year because they couldn't produce the jumpers. So when all the COVID players were playing, no, you're talking about Paddy Nash wore like Tom Cole's jumper. He wore like 5 different jumpers throughout the year. Ridiculous, because boots are a tool of trade that players get, but jumpers and equipment is actually a tool of trade. There isn't many tools of trade in the AFL in terms of things that you can wear that may give you any difference. There's not really any boots. And if you're running around in art smocks, I don't think that's an advantage for the West Coast Eagles. But it's also nothing to do with their season that they have. So New Balance will be the new sponsors there. I think the boys will be happy
They're
with
pretty
that.
reliable, aren't they?
Well, yeah, they've got good shoes.
I'm not even sure where they're from, to be totally honest. They're not Australian, though, are they?
Balance. Sounds Australian.
New Balance. But I'll tell you, it's a well-known brand. That's. And we're talking about jumpers. It's obviously October.
Did you find out where Lakers Tavern? That's where the lads, the Southern River
Lakers
Band,
Tavern.
Lakers Tavern. So get down there in Thornley. Junior Rioli, that seems like it's set and forget. Going to Port Adelaide. There's a bit of behavioural clause chat, but we'll get into that a little bit with.
Speaking of the Eagles, just a bit of talk that Jaden Hunt from Melbourne might be on the radar for the West Coast Eagles. 114 games, I think, for the Demons, 27 years of age. And what he does bring to the table is speed.
I will tell you right now, here on the Shelter FootyCast, he is going to West Coast. He was having dinner with a few people last night.
Well, why didn't you tell me that before we start doing this?
I honestly, I told Dan, and you were late, and you missed that chat.
Okay. Anyway, he brings speed and a headband.
So he'll be at West Coast.
Yep.
He'll sign with West Coast next day or so, once the free agency restricted agent window opens. So I mean that's.
Happy with that? Happy with that collection?
I am. I'm surprised he was inconsistently picked at Melbourne for a period of time this year and last year as well. I think he's a really good player, and I think West Coast is the exact sort of player they need. And yeah, probably poor by me not following along, but it was the first time I'd heard about the last couple of days that he was on the radar. But I can almost 100% confirm he'll be signing with West Coast.
Yeah, well, so just on face value, it is exactly what they need, a bit of someone to break lines and just give them a bit of run. More half back or wing?
I would put him at half back.
Yeah, okay.
West Coast have always had a pretty strong back line, so maybe they will use him on the wing, because they don't have the traditional wingers. Gaffey has been there for a long time, but he doesn't have
Gaffey
pace.
and him doing a...
Well, Gaffey runs all day.
No,
he's never had
he's
pace
a gun.
in his life.
No, but he's a gun player. I'm only taking the piss, but he just keeps going. He's just like Forrest Gump, just goes and goes and goes.
Gaffey would look at a recruitment like that, and he would first of all go like, "Oh, here we go. Here comes some little whippersnapper." But Gaffey is the most competitive bloke on West Coast list, and he'll be like, "All right, we'll see how you go. How long can you run that fast for, son? Because I'll just keep running at this pace the entire time." That's it. That's the Western Australian side of things. We're going to get into a bit of trade news after this. Will Schofield, Mark Redding, Shelter FootyCast. There were a couple of best and fairest awarded over the weekend. Tom Lynch won the Jack Dyer medal at Richmond. Well deserved, I think. He had a great year.
Yeah, it's just interesting. I know it's not the Sandover, not the Brownlow medal, but full forward, a big forward winning a fairest and best is slightly unusual. He did have a really good back half of the year, didn't he?
No, it is slightly unusual.
Yeah, I mean, Shay Bolton, I thought, might have been in the mix. Oh, look, I'm just going off the top of my head. What?
Or he's your guy. Shay Bolton's your guy.
Well, he's not a bad player. I just thought he might have been. Look, he probably finished top 5, which would be a reasonable result.
Can you have a look at that, please, Dan? So where Shay Bolton. Just Google Mark Redding's love child. Where did he finish?
Man crush.
Yeah. Jack Sinclair wins the St Kilda Best and Fairest, the Trevor Barker Award.
Yep, had a very good season.
Really good season, all Australian, unreal. And as you said, Josh Dunkley wins the Charles Sutton Award at the Bulldogs. I think he pipped Norton and Liberatore for the top 3.
Interesting because, I'm not saying this would ever happen, but a bloke that's nicking off, is it better to let him win the fairest and best award, or do you...
I have heard along the way that maybe votes get perhaps
That's
lost
what I've heard
at
as well.
club best and fairest land, depending on trade permutations, but good on them for not losing the votes. I mean, it signifies a bloody big loss for the Bulldogs. Their best player. You cannot argue. He's their best player, walks out the door, just leaves. That's
But he was either going to Port Adelaide or Brisbane, so he was gone. He wanted to go last year.
Could have even wanted to go the year before that.
Exactly.
So
It's a saga.
I've enjoyed the way he's handled it, though. It hasn't been controversial. He's answered questions very directly. People asked him about the best and fairest. Would you be going? He's like, yeah, of course I am. I've been here for a long time. Got a lot of teammates and friends in the house. Looking forward to saying goodbye to everyone. It's taking a bit more of a turn towards NRL land where guys come and go, and it's just the norm. He just acted like it was normal, which through my history as a player, it hasn't been, but I think it's going that way, right?
It has to. As you said, NRL does it. The soccer codes around the world, it's just the way it is done. But, yeah, just one quick one. I thought his partner played netball in Adelaide, so that's
correct. But he's best mates with Adam Treloar, who lives away from his partner and
How long do you reckon you'd survive in those circumstances?
No, not long.
No?
Not long. I struggle to look after myself at the best of times. And
No. You and I think...
behind an average man is a very, very good woman.
Well, that's you and I summed up in one sentence.
Correct. So, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, again, these kids these days, I don't know. Shay Bolton was 4th. Drew for 4th with Liam Baker behind Dion Prestia.
Dion Prestia. I thought he was injured for half the year, but he's a super player. And when he went off the ground in that elimination final with the hammy, that might have been a big turning point.
Meatball, they call him.
Meatball?
Yeah, he's built like a meatball.
Okay.
A little meatball. Couple of trade things that have happened. Jack Gunston, as we mentioned, going to Brisbane. So he'll join Dunkley and they'll get Ashcroft, Will Ashcroft.
Who's a gun. And he was terrific. I'm trying to think, it was prelim final. I was listening to some stuff out of Melbourne and he was having a super game. I mean, he's going to be ready to go. So they're going to be very well
three
suited.
players that walk straight into the team.
Absolutely.
And good players. Like Jack Gunston, he's never been a key power forward, but he's a straightener. He straightens your whole team up. He always, I used to play on Gunston pretty much every time. He's a straight line runner and he always hits up. He's very clever with his leading patterns and he's a leader in the forward line. Like that's a really terrific addition for the Brisbane forward line. He'll complement Danaher with McStay out the door.
Yeah, Hipwood's obviously still there.
So I think like those three, that's almost a better combination than with McStay because McStay, Danaher and Hipwood are kind of all those big, trying to take a mark in a pack, whereas Gunston's that in-between guy.
And you've got Charlie Cameron, Link McCarthy. They've got, look, it doesn't always transpire, but they have got the bones for what will be a really good team next season. Yep,
absolutely agree. I was with Jared Lyons at the wedding of Ryan Davis on the weekend. Spoke to him. He had has OP. So that's what he was. That's what he was copying at the back end of this year. He's completely off legs for most of this off season. So,
and we saw what happened with Elliot Yeo in terms of trying to get yourself back in the short term. It's going to be
because he's 30 years old. Jared Lyons as well. Is he not a young guy that can recover quickly? So it'll be. I thought immediately when he said that. Dunkley coming in, although they may be fighting positions, it's probably very good that they have a Dunkley coming in to cover his loss because he's a good player, Jared Lyons.
True.
What else is going on? Jack Bowes. That seems a really strange one. It's clearly a salary cap dump by the Gold Coast.
Geelong are keen on
it. Of course.
How do they keep doing this? What is the go? Why does everyone want to end up at Geelong?
Honestly, they have to have come together like a Hawthorn did, and they have to be paying the stars less.
Well, you heard the press conference with Joel Selwood a bit, and Chris Scott was asked, and the coach was quite open, saying there's no question Joel could have got a lot more money elsewhere.
Yeah.
He's taken unders for a long time because
he wants to win
of where we are now.
So Jack Bowes, it's a salary cap dump by Gold Coast. I understand it, but I almost don't understand why are they throwing him pick 7 plus his. It's like take it. He was a top 10 pick plus pick 7 and we'll pay some of his salary. pretty keen to get him out the door.
Yeah. Well, Tom Berry, there's talk that he might go from Brisbane to Gold Coast. So there's obviously a plan in place at the Suns, and whether it's financially motivated or not.
Jack Graham from Richmond, apparently in the sights of Port Adelaide, which would be an interesting permutation. And Jordan De Goey, is it a saga? Whatever it is, he's been offered a contract by Collingwood, a good contract, 5 years apparently, but they've got behavioural clauses in it. And the behavioural clauses, from what's being reported, aren't just be a good boy. It's we can dump this contract whenever we want, as we see fit. That's pretty much what it says from what I've read. So in our little PTI at the back end of this, we're going to get right into that. But that's what's happening with that Collingwood situation. Does he look elsewhere because of where that is? Don't give me your views on the behavioural clauses. But if he doesn't accept that from Collingwood, does he look at a St Kilda?
Well, they're the club that's been mentioned, isn't it? And they, again, St Kilda, they do. I'm not saying De Goey's not a player you pick up, but St Kilda seems to be a club that will get a player of quality, but a couple of issues.
Yeah.
No, does that
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know. I just don't. Sometimes they're recruiting with players. St Kilda, it's a bit baffling. You can see what Fremantle's doing with their draft and how they've set up their club. Look, De Goey had a very good end of the season, so I'm hopeful that he will stay there. And
let me just pull you up. He's just reportedly re-signed with Collingwood.
I saw that on the screen, so didn't you? I thought, well, maybe this is a typo.
I didn't see it. Oh, but when I sat down here 24 minutes ago, he hadn't signed.
Yeah, well, it's a good result. Him re-signing with Collingwood, whether he has via Andrew McCormack at 7, by the way, that news is coming out. But whether he has re-signed with those conditions in place, Scully, for De Goey, is a very good question.
No, he's very
You
good
like that?
question.
How we worked
Yeah,
out Scully and De Goey?
Yeah, very good. He still thinks about Scully, actually,
Sharp.
De Goey. He's been thinking about it since 2018.
You did ragdolled him at 18 grand. You told me that.
Yeah, he told me it too. Collingwood's Callum Brown, he's confident he can find a new home. So Callum Brown was delisted. Both the Brown brothers were delisted from Collingwood. Geelong put through their list changes. Quinton Narkle, probably the biggest of those. He's played 100 games of footy, Quinton Narkle, I believe. 100 games of AFL or 50? 50.
No, I
50.
thought
50. He's played 50.
I thought it was 41 in 6 seasons, but I stand correct.
Well, you sound like you know a lot more than what I'm doing.
Only because I did radio yesterday. Otherwise, I would have
That's
struggled.
what you're here for. 41. For some reason, I saw the amount of games he played, and I was very surprised. I thought he played less than that. So
Yeah, no, he's been in the system there for 6 years. I can't give you a definitive as to whether he'll get another gig, but your thoughts? Have you seen enough of him to give an opinion?
No, but when he's been in the side, he's had some big games goal-wise. He's kicked multiple goals as that small forward. So there are always players that teams are looking for. Yeah, absolutely. And the last one, Jacko Nelson, spoke about him. Look, I wouldn't be surprised if a Geelong went and picked up a Jacko Nelson. I think he can sort of be a player that you could get pretty cheaply that has played 100 games. I know for a fact that he's played 100 games.
103, I think.
Right, so to get someone who's had 103 games experience in the system that can look after their body, that can come back from a preseason, know what they're doing, that can be told what to do, that can look at a game plan, that can work with teammates. There is a lot to be said by 100 games of experience, whether you think they're going to be a superstar or not, which Jacko Nelson, probably not going to be a superstar, but can he be a good AFL player? I think he can.
Well, I think what you're saying is with a player like Jackson, he goes to a good club and isn't in their best 22. But as we know, in the course of a season, things can change. Absolutely.
You need guys like Jacko Nelson. You can't have best 22 players and rookies. You have to have the guys challenging for selection. Like, you just can't get away from it. So, look, I'd be surprised if a club didn't at least look at him and maybe pick him up. That's all the trade done and dusted here on the Shelter FootyCast. Thought we might have a quick look at the Waffle Grand Final. We're both working it on the weekend. It's a big game here in Western Australia. Be played at Leederville Oval. I know that one's right. It starts at 3 o'clock. It's going to be... I think it's a good thing it's being played away from Optus Stadium, in my opinion. We said that last on Monday. West Perth v Claremont. Who wins this one?
Yeah, look, it's going to be a ripper because Claremont's had some decent success against West Perth. The Falcons did it the short way by getting a win in the second semi-final over East Fremantle, straight into the grand final. They've got the issue of Mark Hutchings, who unfortunately 5-centimetre tear in his hammy, so he's missing.
Right, he's out, done.
Definitely done. I mean, he played in the second semi, I think, and stayed in the goal square after he injured himself just to help out on rotations. But they've been terrific all year, West Perth, and deserve to go in favourites. Leederville Oval, going to be, 14,000, 15,000 15,000. Look, end of the day, it can be 27 degrees. The grass has been fixed, and some of the numpties that I've read on a Facebook page called Waffle On, some of that absolute crap that maybe I shouldn't read it, but they were carrying on in the middle of July. And it was a lake. It was the conditions were poor.
Yes, it was winter though.
Yeah, exactly. It was winter, and this is a footy ground.
It looks great.
It needed to improve. Let's be honest on that front. But come September, October, the work's been done. The grass has been laid, and it's not going to be up to stadium. We know that because it hasn't got the capacity. The facilities aren't going to be as what we're used to at Optus Stadium. But I think in terms of atmosphere, I think you're onto something there. It'll be with West Perth there. And a forecast of 26, it'll be a cracking day to go along.
They're shutting Oxford Street in Leederville, which are coming back from Europe, just to rub it in a little bit more. I have wondered maybe we could do this more often in little precincts like Leederville, shut a few roads and have people...
Just wander.
Yeah, wander and get in between, get into the action. They do it in Europe a lot, mate. So
I agree. It's good.
It's going to be great. There'll be 15,000. Is it?
Yeah, well, it depends. So how many they can squeeze.
You stack 15, 20 over on the bank.
Mate, they had 24,000 back in the late 1970s when of course access was just no drama. So they're going to allow people to take it. There's going to be marquees inside. So it's going to be really good. But going back to the game, West Perth...
They've notoriously had a very good midfield, West Perth.
Well, you think of Black Nelson straight away as being absolute guns.
Yep.
So they're really good. Luke Meadows is terrific. Pole super in the Sandover. So their midfield's good. But then on the counter side, when you always look at Claremont, you've got Shay Bolton, who's played a bit outside the centre square at times this year. So too Bailey Rogers, but he's a star. Look, Ryan Lim has been elite for them as well. Ben Elliott, Edwards. There's a bit to like about Claremont as they recovered from a horrendous qualifying final loss, which you remember that game against East Fremantle. They were terrible, beaten by 8 goals.
Yes.
But they won the next week, beat East Fremantle the next time they met, and now they're in a GF.
The next time we saw Claremont, they clearly learnt a lot from that East Freo game. They weren't playing finals footy. They were still playing that during the season type footy where you can flick it around and make an error and nothing really happens. Finals footy, no matter what grade it is a very different type of footy. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be great fun calling. I believe, I don't know if this is your doing or not, I'll be... Am I allowed to talk about this bottom point?
No. So I got asked by somebody at the commission who I should throw up for the Simpson medal as a judge, and I thought, well, who knows very little about the waffle? I thought.
So you said Lee Spur.
Exactly.
Is Spurry one?
Oh no, he's not. No. So I think it's Tony McHale's going to do it.
Bubba.
Alongside a good self. So I know you're joking. But I've done a couple of those medals. I think it was Sydney West Coast. It was the HMAS Sydney or whatever it was. And I got asked, and I did it, but I was actually quite stressed during the match.
You think I'm joking? I'm not joking at all.
It's a stressful experience because obviously you don't want to. There's only 2 of you, and if Puppy chooses 3 votes, Shane Nelson, 2 votes Aaron Black, and 1 vote Shay Bolton, and you've got 3 votes Anton Hamp.
Yes, correct.
Someone who's hasn't. It's stress.
I'm hoping. I honestly hope someone kicks 10 goals, has 30, and they win the Simpson medal. I'm looking forward to it. It's the first time I've ever really.
Oh really? No. Well, you know your footy, so I think it'd be great for you.
Just watch for the backman. That's all I'll say. No, I'll be
Brian Lake time, is it?
Yeah. So that'll be a good game. West Perth v Claremont. Get down there if you're not doing anything on the weekend. It'll be good fun. I'm sure there'll be a couple of shelters flowing around a little bit. I'm sure they.
Gee, at full time, I'll tell you, we might just have to get amongst that because
that's footy season.
Footy season always done.
Men's side of things, the AFLW though, that's still going along nicely. I think the competition as a whole. It's improving. The standard of footy is improving. There's more people going to games. It's a family-orientated game because it's like the waffle. You can get out there with your kids and have a kick. We've called a few games together. I've called some games with Fox Footy. I think the product, there's more people playing fantasy AFLW. There's more people betting on AFLW. There's more people watching on TV. The product as a whole is improving. Is it next to the men's competition? No, it's not. But it's not at ground zero either. I as the AFL, I'd be happy with the product that the AFLW is right now.
Yeah, look, I think you're right. It's improving. There is, look, if I'm being totally honest, if you're watching a Colts side play on the weekend here in the Waffle, they would dismantle any AFLW side. So you put it into context. But sometimes sport like this isn't just about the here and now. It's about what it's doing for generations to come. What I would say is that why do the rules have to be exactly the same as the men in terms of why? I'm trying to find a way to increase the scoring.
Well, they're not. There's only 16 players on
No,
the ground.
well, to say, yeah, that's. But in
They
terms of
bring the boundary throw-ins 10 metres
they
in.
do, but the ground size is still significant, I think.
What do you think? Bring
Well,
in?
I'm just trying to think of ways to transition the footy. Is it a case of being able to run 20 metres before having a bounce? Just something to enable the ball to get from A to B a bit quicker, a bit easier. Now, I'm not saying I've got the answer to it, but the issue that I see on Adelaide kicked a record score the other day, 97 points or something like that, but goals. When you're getting 2 goals, what was it, the Derby? 3 goals apiece.
Yeah.
I mean, because we're used to, it's a high-scoring game, whether it's men or women, we want to see goals.
Yeah. So, I mean, solutions, there's rule-based solutions, and then there's the development of the game. You know, you can't shy away from it. The girls need to get better at footy, which I think they are, which is what I was saying. I think they are getting better, but that's not going to be a quick fix. No. A rule change would be a quick fix. Can you open the game up more? At one stage, did we bring the goal square out like another 20 metres, like 15 metres?
I think there's talk of that. I'm not sure.
That was in the AFL men's competition.
Yeah.
Remember there was like a double goal square at one stage? I think probably more like that. Do you shorten the ground? I don't think so. No.
It's going to be hard to shorten the ground because they're playing essentially at AFL grounds or so.
Quite honestly, the skill level is a big reason why goal scoring's low.
What I will say is, and you've been to a couple of AFLW games, I've been to that and Waffle W. What they lack in skill, they are stupidly courageous at times. They just have no regard for their bodies when it comes to running back with the flight. Kiara Bow is just a tackling machine. So full of admiration for the way they go about it physically.
There's a game in Western Australia this week. Fremantle will play Melbourne 12:10 at Freo Oval, so get down there. I think that's on Sunday, I believe.
Of course, Hawthorn have got the Eagles at Sky Bus Stadium at 4:10 p.m. So a bit of footy for your AFLW converts.
NBL starts this week.
Wildcats had their launch last night. Big Hutchie's in town to just drum up some support and hopefully
come down and see the boys down at Sports Day.
No, I haven't seen him. I'm sure he'll be ticking in there at some stage. But no, Wildcats. John Riley, the new coach. Of course, they've made some roster changes, which was always going to happen. End of the day, they've got Bryce Cotton and they've got the Brisbane Bullets on Sunday afternoon, which the Wildcats are a great organisation. We love them.
Are they, as a team, are they slated to go well this year? Are they slated?
Yes.
They seem like they always are.
Yeah, well, they are. I mean, bear in mind.
Missed the finals for the first time in
30-odd years.
30 years last year.
So you look at Sydney Kings, defending champs, will go well. Melbourne United, always about the place. Wildcats, just historically, they'll bounce. I mean, last year was, the COVID restrictions. I think they lost. Was it Vic Law? Lost someone late in the piece. Anyway, they had some personnel issues, but I would be extremely buoyant about the fact they're making the playoffs.
Very good, love that. Okay, Mark Reddings, Will Schofield, Shelter FootyCast. We're going to get into a bit of PTI here, and there's a good one coming up. We're just going to do the one right now, and it's a good one, I think. Behavioural clauses in contracts are a good thing. Yes or no, Skeet? And where do you sit on the whole Jordan De Goey thing? It sounds like he's signed for Collingwood, but there was debate around the behavioural clauses included in his contract.
Well, I think there are behavioural clauses in any job you do, Will. In terms of if I'm working for you and I are working for Channel 7 doing the waffle, for instance, albeit not full timers, but if you're a full time employee, if you get done for drink driving, if you're charged with assault, if you are bringing the company into disrepute, I mean, that's all just a given. It doesn't necessarily have to be a footballer. So there are behavioural clauses just known in society, in jobs. So why shouldn't there be for footballers?
Well, there is. Like in any standard given playing contract, there are behavioural clauses and there are actions that clubs can take, actions the league can take, and actions the AFLPA can take, from suspension to fines and so they're all mandated across the league for players. It's not like players get to run around doing whatever they want. It may seem like that, with some of them.
No, 90%. As you know, 99% of players are clean skins.
But it's not like there aren't behavioural clauses. This Collingwood one was above and beyond what's in the standard regular contract. It was like a standard contract that every player signs, and then they had Annex A, and it was like, it said, if you stuff up, it doesn't matter what you do, and if we think it's a reason to cut your contract, we're cutting it. Regardless of Jordan De Goey's behaviour, regardless of his history, regardless of what he's done, I don't think that's a fair thing for him to sign. I think it was a good thing that he didn't sign it in the first place. Now, I don't know if it's been removed out of the contract, one that he signed.
We're not sure, are we?
But how can you have that on someone, regardless of what they've done in the past, that it doesn't matter what you do in the future. If you do something and we think you're out of here, you're out of here. Why would you sign that?
He's had a few chances, though. I mean, when I say chances, he has been. I mean, you don't get taken to a lockup in New York. He's had
no, but it was not charged. Whatever that was.
He might have been charged with, but I'm telling you,
something happened. Yes.
Yeah. So I know. Look, Barley to me was a beat up. I think in
social media.
Yeah, social media. But again, the point going back, he has had a couple of little convictions next to his name. I'm not talking criminal convictions, but just little black marks next to his name. I've got no issue. I mean, if he's well behaved, that annex that you talk about doesn't come into play.
So just behave yourself.
I think so. I mean, he's playing such good footy at the moment. Collingwood,
and that shouldn't override behaviour.
No,
which like some people, well, he's a good footballer. That I will put the line in the sand there. It doesn't matter if you're a good footballer or not. You can't be doing things wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So no, we beg to differ there. I've got no issue with the club, given his background, just to put that in place. Now, whether that's been adjusted with the contract, not sure. But it's a good result for Collingwood and for Jordan to go. I don't think it would serve much purpose for him to go to another club.
Very good. If you want to send us your stories, you want to ask us a question, send us an email, footycast@shelterbrewing.com.au. Follow us on socials. Watch us on YouTube. Listen to us as a podcast. We're done and dusted. Skeet's going to need some... You're going to get... I reckon you're going to get a nice sleep after this weekend. You got the grand final coming up. You've been working very hard for the AFL men's competition, AFLW coming, NBL coming. Are you going to get a rest, Skeet?
Yes, I'm going to Bali in a couple of weeks, although I am booked with the Jetstar, so there's no guarantee that I'll get there. But if I do get there, Scully, I'm not sure I'll get back before the Melbourne Cup.
You'd be happy with that. Oh, not Melbourne Cup.
I want to get the Melbourne Cup. Very important. But yeah, so Jetstar, if you've got any sense of just humanity, just make sure that there's a lot of people stuck up there still. No, I'm serious. It's been an absolute bun fight.
I reckon I'd just...
I know, you've had some issues.
I would just stay in Bali. Jetstar absolutely cooked me over the weekend. So, Jetstar, get on one. Travel and Sports Australia.
Exactly, yeah. Paul Ramsey, the team, Travel and Sport Australia. Well said, Scully.
Scully, goodbye.